Hello everyone and welcome to Sinful Gaming. Today we're going to be going through a tournament report for South Australian Grand Tournament 2020 run by Doom and Darkness. We'll go through all my games, my army list, my thoughts and where I go next with the army list that I'm working on in this current year. Without further ado, we'll jump straight into the army list and talk a little bit about that and the idea behind it. So here is the army. What I've taken is I've chosen to go with Hammerhall, and the idea behind the army was to take power pairs within Hammerhall and try and use some wombo combos to win the day. The army did alright. We'll go through a proper ideas of what I thought, but this was the idea behind the army list. So we've got the Dreadlord and Black Dragon, and he has 2 units of Drakespawn Knights that will accompany him and go around the board. We have a unit of 20 Phoenix Guard and Anointed, who is the general, and they are his honoured retinue, and they form the core of the army alongside 30 handgunners and a sorceress with 10 dread spears, there for her sacrificing. I've also got 2 units of 3 Demigryph Knights. Really want to see how they go. I've got a unit of each, one with halberds, one with spears, and to finish it off, I took an extra command point, and I've got a battle mage there who is the light battle mage with Far's protection. The sorceress, in addition, had Smoke Cloud, or I think that's the name, the spell with the 9-inch bubble of -1 to hit, so she's got different ways to provide -1 to hit, and the light wizard took Wings of Fire. Without further ado, we're going to go and get into the games now. So the idea was this army was going to play in pairs and was going to try and take things off in power couples. We'll see how that goes as we get through the tournament report. So the first game of the event, we were playing Battle for the Pass, and I got grudged by Craig Anderson. He was running a Slaves to Darkness, I believe 6th Circle army with Archaon and a ton of Vanguard and even 10 Chaos Warriors. Everything was Mark Slanesh. And so how this game went, I sort of took the Phoenix Guard up one flank and had the Drakespawn go down the other flank. He then decided that he was going to absolutely pummel those Phoenix Guard and put 2 units of Vanguard Archaon double piled in, and they were swiftly removed from the table. He saw the threat, he punched them, and a double turn on this instance really did help push home on that. However, it wasn't all bad. The Phoenix Guard received some help from the Demigryph Knights with the spears, and they did do some work to some of the Vanguard. I did take most of those Vanguard on that flank down to a single model in the units. On the other side, the Dragon did have to swing in and come help out the middle of the table and help get rid of those Vanguard. Eventually, he was laid low by Archaon himself. 1 unit of Drakespawn did manage to get up the flank and do some damage, and the handgunners at the back, along with the Dreadspear and the heroes, actually got tied up by that unit of Chaos Warriors that got flung in my backfield. That was pretty poor positioning on my part, and probably should have screened out and put the Dreadspears there or something to stop that happening. This was a bit of inexperience from me, or lack of playtime, and I completely forgot what Slaves to Darkness do. Completely forgot they had a teleport available to them, and yeah, I got hit on the backfield. That really slowed my advance. The game was a lot closer than one would think, though. It ended up being a 25-21. I almost pulled it back. There were chances for me to win the game. I don't think anything did particularly well. I made a few mistakes. And Craig absolutely punished me for making such mistakes. Things I would have done differently is most certainly, as I've already mentioned, the Dreadspears probably would have dropped down and lashed a big thing at the backfield and stopped anything deep striking back there. I probably wouldn't have been as aggressive with the Phoenix Guard and being given first turn, but I try to get on the objectives, get the points early. This, in hindsight, probably wasn't the greatest idea. I probably should have held them back and used the double screen of the Demigryphs and kept the Phoenix Guard back a little bit. The handgunners getting tied up early because I didn't screen my backfield was a massive negative on my part. And they just weren't able to contribute. They would have been really helpful in dealing with the Vanguard and Archaon to an extent. The Drakespawn Knights on the flank did really well. They were quite dangerous. Even though they've only got 1 attack on the rider, they did quite sufficient damage to the Vanguard units. They wiped one out clean, and the Dragon took out another unit and some scraps and managed to do some damage to Archaon himself. All in all, this battle did end in a major defeat for me, putting me down on the bottom tables, and a few mistakes that I just wasn't able to recover from fully. I had my chances. I did claw it back to a decent score, so I had a lot of victory points. This put me right at the top of all the first round losses. up next was game 2. I actually moved up tables from where I was from this. I was pretty high in the tournament of this because just of how many victory points I did score in the previous game. This was probably my worst game of the tournament though. I really never got into the game properly. It was the lowest amount of victory points I scored. Still almost reaching 20 though. And yeah, we were playing shifting objectives and I was up against Ogre Moor Tribes with a double Stonehorn list. A unit of 8 Iron Guts, there was a Hunter, some units of Cats, and interestingly, there was a Fungoid Cave Shaman and a Arch Revenant Mercenary. So, what happened in this game? I got the first turn, so I pushed up this Phoenix Guard in the middle. There was a big piece of terrain there, so I was able to use it to screen off some of the Phoenix Guard. The Drakespawn went down one flank, the Dragon is over on the right. You can't see him in this picture, but he's over on the right. Demigryphs and spears just sort of formed up a screen, stopping those Iron Guts. They are quite squishy, but they do hit like a ton of bricks, so I sacrificed the Dread Spears to them. The handgunners remained behind, and so did a unit of Demigryphs. What happened in this game? On the right hand flank, he summoned on the ghouls with that he's able to thanks to the Merc that he had in the army. And the Dragon got stuck over there dealing with the Stonehorn, and it just couldn't really punch through. The Drakespawn came in, they were murdered by a Stonehorn. The other Stonehorn came in, it was the ethereal one in the center. The Phoenix Guard just couldn't shift it and it slowly ground them down. The handgunners got tied up on the side by the Ogres as they crushed through the Dread Spears, crushed through the Demigryphs on that side, managed to get a double turn and then punch into my handgunners, and they slowly whittled them down even when I was getting fast protection and other such -1 to hit spells off. This game I was really hamstrung. I really got pushed back. I never was able to really push forward out of my half of the table, and it just didn't go well. I learnt a lot about the army in this game, and it lacks that little bit of punch to get rid of those real heavy hard targets. This was not able to shift the ethereal Stonehorn or even the other Stonehorn at this point. And that would come in handy later, learning what I could do against the Stonehorn. I did manage to whittle down both Stonehorns to about 2 wounds. I got most of the Iron Guts off the table as well, but I got very little VPs, very little kill points in this game, which did hurt my overall place in the tournament and dropped me down quite a bit. And that's sort of how it goes when you use kill points versus Ogre Moor Tribes. Because they are so tough and there's so many points hold up in single units, if you just don't manage to kill them, the game looks a lot further away from you than it seems. Like, I killed 2 units of dogs, but in reality I'd almost killed another 1500 points of the army, but I just couldn't get the job finished on those things. So this one was another major loss to me, and I dropped down onto the bottom tables for this turn. Game 3 now, and I was right down on the bottom tables. I was playing Adam and his Blades of Khorne, an interesting sort of list. It was Blood Reavers, Blood Warriors, 2 Soul Grinders, a Daemon Prince with that minus charge and run aura thing, some 30 Plague Bearers on his objective, and there was also a Bloodthirster of... I can't remember the name of which Bloodthirster is the one with the big axe. So, what's happened here? So, we were playing Knife to the Heart. I decided I'm going to play quite defensively. Phoenix Guard are not going to get shifted up the objective. He did the same thing, putting Plague Bearers on his. And so, his Bloodthirster and one of the Soul Grinders are down on that left-hand flank. You can't quite see them in this. There's another Soul Grinder, some Blood Warriors and Blood Reavers on the other flank there, you can see. So I deployed the Demigryphs on one side, and the Drakespawn and the Dragon on the other. Phoenix Guard, Handgunners, Dread Spears sort of protecting my rear, to make sure if anything going behind, he couldn't summon over my lines and stuff like that. So what happened in this game? He pushed forward, he hit my screen of Demigryphs, you can see the first one wave, but then I managed to get the turn. In return, the Demigryphs with spears took the Bloodthirster off the table. He got to attack first and all that, and absolutely whiffed with that Bloodthirster, and the Demigryphs pounced and pounded him to the ground. Start to finish, he was dead. On the other flank, the Soul Grinder, the Blood Warriors and Blood Reavers up on that top right of his army, you can see. The Drakespawn, one unit of Drakespawn and the Dragon dealt with them quite easily. The Phoenix Guard ended up trying to push, and then we got to turn 4. I was winning by only about, on a minor by only about 300 kill points. I had a single demigriff and a Drake spawn knights, and so I decided to actually retreat my models back, because if the demigriff died, there's 180, and if I rolled badly and got punched back and they died as well, I could have lost the Drake spawn as well. And just decided it wasn't worth throwing the game to this victory, because it was actually more likely that I would lose from those charges. So we drew my army, we drew back onto my objective, and won the game from a minor victory. Giving me my only win of the tournament. Spoilers. But I did learn a lot from this. The army can do punch if it splits its opponents up. He left some units isolated, and the Drake spawn and Dragon were able to take them, and the Demigriffs were able to take some isolated units off the table. The Phoenix Guard and Handgunners and Dread Spears, along with the 2 Wizards, were very non-existent in this battle. It was really just Cavalry and the Dragon that did a lot of the work and got me the minor win. Up next, on the start of day 2, I was going to be playing Ogre Mawtribes again in Scorched Earth. I haven't actually played a lot of the missions that are in this pack. I haven't managed to play a lot of the new General's Handbook missions, obviously getting married and having a son, so I haven't actually had a chance to play a lot of games with the new missions. However, I really do like the new Scorched Earth mission. I thought this was actually a really great mission, and I enjoyed this quite a lot. I learned a lot about my last game against Ogre Mawtribes with the cities, and was keen not to replicate mistakes made in that game by trying to get rid of the Stonehorn and such. As such, I was given the first turn, and I actually pushed up on the left-hand flank with my Phoenix Guard and the Demigriffs, and sort of zoned in his Stonehorn to a part and pushed him back on that side of the battlefield. On the other side, the Drake spawn, the Demigriffs, and the Dragon all pushed over. This game actually went quite well for me in the early parts. That right-hand flank of his utterly capitulated, and the Dragon and the Drake spawn and the Demigriffs punched a hole through it quite quickly. He was doing pretty similar on the other flank to me, though not quite as quick. I managed to put like 6-inch, so he couldn't do any 6-inch pile-in shenanigans or anything like that, and was slowly whittling down. I got rid of his Butcher on the Balewind pretty quickly, and lots of other things on that side. It did okay for me. They were holding him up. I did manage to score his objectives and get points on the board quite quickly, and actually take his objectives off him quite early. And he was down on points. The game, however, really swung when his just behind that piece of terrain in the center of his army, there's an ogre near the cauldron, a butcher, and it managed to get Savage Maws off and kill my dragon start to finish, and that swung the battle entirely, because it now meant he no longer needed to go to his backfield and try and rescue his backfield, and he was able to push forward. The game actually came down to multiple priority rolls and multiple dice rolls in the end. There was a priority roll. If I had a 1, I would have got points to be on the board way before, so he was not able to cap. He then managed to burn 3 of my objectives in 1 turn, but rolled horrendously and gave me the chance for a victory on a 3+ on a D3. Of course, I didn't roll the 3+, I rolled a 1, giving me 1 victory point, tying the game at 22 all, and then meaning he won. Once again, ogres, you don't kill them all, you don't get the points, and so I got very few victory points because I didn't manage to get rid of the units that hold up all the kill points, and I lost a minor loss on this. This was a fantastic game. There was so much back and forth in the game. I haven't had a game of Age of Sigmar I've enjoyed this much in a long time. It's good to know that I learned a lot from my mistakes in the first Ogre Mawtribes game, and was really able to push. If it wasn't for a bit of luck on his, a bit of bad luck on mine, and some mistakes here and there from both of us, really, this was just a close, swingy, great game, and was easily the game of the event for me. I don't think I've ever been so happy to have had a loss. It's one of those games you look back on and everything about that game was just so much fun. I can't wait. I've been actually chatting to Jason for quite a lot. He was over in another state, and that state happens to have the teams for sports balls that I go for, and trying to organise something, but there wasn't really a lot happening in the state that he was in. He's now come to our state, and I finally managed to get a game against him. We got randomly drawn, and it was great to actually have this game happen. And so, first of many, hopefully we'll see each other again soon and get playing some more games together, because this was a ton of fun. And Game 5, last game of the tournament, and of course we're playing the age-old Game 5 focal points. This is pretty common to see in Game 5 in a lot of events in Australia. It's a fantastic mission, although I do prefer the 2018 version where it's the diagonals that give you the extra points to score. I think that's a little bit cooler. However, so what happened in this game, you can see I've got my Phoenix Guard on one flank, I've got the Demigriffs and the Handgunners on the other. The Sylvaneth in the first turn dropped a tree in the middle of the table. They jumped through. I got Kernoff Hunters in my face turn 1. However, we did remove a couple from the Handgunners, and I actually managed to do some pretty decent damage to that unit. The Phoenix Guard ran up. They actually ended up taking the far left, and I scored some points really quick. Dryads, however, managed to get in the center of the board, and I just wasn't able to remove him. The Dragon absolutely whiffed on his first turn. I should have given him reroll ones to hit. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a second, but this game was really close. Was always just within my reach, but I was always just unable to get it. At times, like the dragon survived, and he just couldn't seem to get rid of the dragon, but it couldn't quite do the job that it needed to. It was rolling pretty poor this game on the offensive side. This game ended up being a major loss to end the tournament against the Sylvaneth. I've now played Chris, I think, at the last 3 events, and he beats me every time. They're always close, good games, and so hoping next time we can smash him and get some revenge. There's not really a lot more to say about this game. This was just a very simple sort of game that we just came in for. I didn't really do enough damage to the Sylvaneth, despite I did remove quite a bit of his army, but it was always just not enough, and I ran out of troops really quick against them. And that's really the end of this game and the end of the tournament. I ended up with 1 minor win, 1 minor loss, and 3 major losses. Not as terrible as the results sound. I scored a lot of victory points. I was able to collect victory points quite high in all my games, so there's that to go off on, but we'll talk about that next. And so that's the end of the tournament report as such. We're going to talk a little bit now about what the future holds for this list, what I thought went really well, what I thought didn't do really well, and some things I can do to make changes and that throughout the game. So, the first biggest change I really noticed is that the Handgunners and Demigriffs just needed something to help them. So I was either going to have to take them out of the army or bring something to the table to do this. And I think a 3-guild general is going to be the way to go, just to give that a bit of punch and potentially drop the Halberd unit of Demigriffs, because the Spears do alright on their own just with reroll 1s to hit. The Phoenix Guard, I'm really iffy about Phoenix Guard. I know they're really good and they're really solid. They just take up so many points, and I'm not sure if they're the best option on the surface. They might do really well individually, but I'm not sure if they bring a lot to the army, and I think they might actually take a little bit away from the army by costing so many points. I'm going to trial a few different options going forward and just see how we go without them in the list. The Dreadlord on Black Dragon was by far the MVP. He's an absolute tank. Once you get the buffs off, you need to make sure you get those buffs happening though, because otherwise he can fall a bit flat and can be quite swingy otherwise. The Drakespawn Knights, they're okay. They do well enough. You've just got to be really careful to pick. They don't have a high volume of attacks, but if you can pair one with the Dreadlord on Black Dragon, they can knock off a screen quite easily and quite efficiently with those Ren 2 damage attacks on the charge and get rid of all that stuff that's in the way. The Light Mage and the Sorceress, I think I've just had too many of the same sort of spells on them, and so I'm going to change that up a little bit. I'm probably going to get rid of the Light Battle Mage. I don't think I need him. I think smart and clever placement of the Sorceress can cover that. I'm unsure on the Dread Spears. I actually didn't use any sacrificing all tournament, and so I don't really know if you need them in the list. But potentially, I completely forgot that she has a command ability that allows you to run and charge and run and shoot. So we might trial that with something in the future. Like I said, just in light of the battles, I got a lot of victory points in the army, and the army actually can compete. It does, especially in the game against Jason's Ogre War Tribes. I feel if I had a unit that could have deep struck or teleported or something, I actually would have won the game, because he had nothing able to defend his backfield, and so if I had that, I probably could have won. And so with that, we're going to have a look at what I plan to go into for a list next. And so the list that I've got planned next will be once again Hammerhall. We're going to try and keep going with this power pairing sort of list that we've been trying to do in Hammerhall. And so we're going to start off by we're swapping out the Phoenix Guard that I'm not quite sure do what they need to do for their points, and potentially putting some more bodies in the army instead. So we're going to take Free Guild General with the Blood of the 12 command trait, and he's going to be the general. We're having a sorceress, a life battle mage instead of the light one, who will be an adjutant, Dreadlord of the Black Dragon, but we'll take Ignax Scales now instead of the Twin Stone, giving it a bit more defensive option, because I found that was sort of the issue. It could deal out a lot of damage, and it had no save against mortal wounds, and it sort of got removed once mortal started being a thing. By taking Ignax, it should cover that, and I think because I've got so many command points in the army, I potentially don't need to worry so much about giving him +1 to hit. I can get reroll 1s to hit, so he's on 3s rerolling 1s, which is, and then 2s to wound for most of his things, which I think is just as good, if not a little bit better. We're only going to keep the 33 guild handgunners in. The Free Guild General will make better use of them. The 3 Demigryph Knights and 40 Free Guild Guard, they all become battle line because of the general, and that fills up the majority of our battle line. We're then going to have 20 Dark Shards now to combine with the Sorceress. I think Dark Shards being able to run and charge will actually be quite useful. And just whenever you're taking the Sorceress, I feel like you have to take some sort of Darkened Coven's unit to make the use of the sacrifice if she really needs to get a spell off. We're going to keep 2 units of 5 Drakespawn Knights. I'm not sure if 2 units is the way to go, or if I just need 1 just to clear off chaff for the Dreadlord and potentially take 1 unit of Drakespawn out, but we're going to keep with 2 for now, and see how we go with that. We're then going to have 10 Shadow Warriors. These were a must. There was definitely a game in the tournament that I lost because I didn't have something to deep strike, and so 10 Shadow Warriors are going to cover that. And to round it out, we're going to have an extra command point, and this will put the army at, I think, exactly 2,000 points. I'm interested to see how this goes. The Free Guild Guard, the other options I'm looking at instead of Free Guild Guard and the Free Guild General is potentially then we're the Free Guild Guard and stuff. I'm potentially looking at like maybe a Nomad Prince and some Eternal Guard, or maybe a some Iron Breakers and a Warden King and stuff like that, and we'll see how like all these different things go in the army. Instead of 5 Drakespawn Knights, I'm interested in what I could do. I could maybe put in a unit of Dark Riders. I could maybe try and squeeze in some Gyrocopters potentially, or even like a War Machine, like a Celestial Ballista or something like that. But yeah, this is going to be the list. My local group's organising our monthly meet, so hopefully I can get this list out and painted and get it out the next monthly meet, get it playing there. I need to do a little bit of ordering for it. I've got all the models, but I need to do an order through Shadow's Edge Miniature. If you've seen my army before, and you see the little flower tufts, I get them from Shadow's Edge Miniatures. They're fantastic little flower tufts, and they do grass tufts, and as well as like snow frosted ones as well, which is really quite cool. Be using them on my ogres at one point. Anyway, thank you all for listening. I hope you've enjoyed this little tournament report. Sorry there weren't more pictures. I really don't like taking too many pictures at a tournament. I feel like I should be giving all my attention to my opponent. But I've tried to recount the games as good as possible for you. If you have any questions, any thoughts about the list, any ideas, any questions, ideas, etc., please leave a comment down below. I'll try to respond to everyone who comments and such. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And thank you all for watching. Ciao for now, everyone.